Welcome to The Difference. Today, I'm having a conversation with a friend that I made when I was in Hattiesburg. Mavis Craig is the director of R3SM and probably president of more different volunteer organizations than anybody I've ever met.
You are listening to The Difference, a presentation from The Hour, a 54-year ministry. Steve, first we started on radio, then went to television, then we went streaming online. So at Our Stream, you can watch our programming from all those years. So it's at thehour.org. And now, here we are. Steve, connections and relationships are just so important, and you have been blessed through your time in the Hattiesburg area and your time in the Jackson and Madison area. I mean, you have made some really cool connections.
I have. You know, when we moved to Hattiesburg, they had just had the tornado, and I'd been experienced in recovery through the conference office, and I heard about a meeting of the disaster recovery community, and when we went, there was an organization that had kind of stepped up to take on long-term recovery called R3SM, and I'm not even going to get into that acrostic. But as I talked and asked questions after the meeting, the then director came up and said, "Hey, would you be on our board?" And so, of course, I couldn't resist. It was something I was passionate about, and got on the board. And not long after I got on the board, the executive director was retiring, and Mavis had been doing the field work and supervising all the stuff, and so I'd been elected as chair of the board, and I just suggested that we hire her, and it was one of the best decisions I ever suggested. Watching her take hold of all the many nuances that went with that recovery was incredible. And in the midst of that, we developed a friendship. She herself had so many personal struggles and was going through things. And so now I'm Pops. And so whenever she texts me or we have something, it's like, "Hey, Pops, this is what's going on." And so I know as people listen to this conversation, it's going to be inspiring because her journey, you know, there's just not many people that have weathered what she's gone through, literally in disaster recovery, but also in her life.
I can't wait to hear the conversation. Let's listen.
Let's listen. Welcome to The Difference. I'm Steve Castile, and today we're having a conversation with somebody that's very dear to me. Mavis Craig is just one of my heroes who, you hear me say that all the time, but watching her lead and grow has been one of the deep joys and pleasures of my time since meeting her. So Mavis, I thank you so much for joining us today. Mavis and I met when we moved to Hattiesburg, and she was working with an organization called R3SM, and they needed a board member, and I needed some community service, and so God created that holy intersection, and the rest is history, isn't it?
It is. It is. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be here. You came along at a time when I needed you and you needed us, and it just merged really well.
It was just one of God's perfect moments. One of the reasons that I treasure Mavis's friendship so much is she's one of the most spiritual women that I've ever met. She has truly lived into her faith through some of the most challenging circumstances and situations, and has literally begun to share that story as a way of helping people through healing. And so Mavis, just kind of take a minute and introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about that life story. We don't have 27 episodes to do this because you have a whole book.
I do. I have a couple books.
You do have a couple books, literally, and we'll talk about that at the end. But just take a minute and kind of walk us through the kind of speed version of your life journey.
Well, my life journey, I grew up as a faith believer. I can remember at the age of about 6 or 7, praying to God and just, you hear in church who God is, but to experience Him for yourself. But along that journey, sometimes we're planted as children, but, sometimes we veer to the left and to the right, especially I can think about college. And we get off track. One of the things that really brought me closer to God was having my son. I was at Mississippi State, go Bulldogs, and I had him the semester before I graduated with my undergraduate degree. I was in the extended stay program, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
A little bit longer than some, but my son Jordan, he is my hero. He just recently turned 20 in March, and he's
goodness.
really been my inspiration. I know Pastor Steve, he's seen him since he was little.
Changed and grow into the entrepreneur that he is.
Surely is. He's always asking for an investment just as we speak. But I believe he's good for it. But he really changed my perspective on life. And really having to lean into my faith and into God and just really trusting and believing. So I graduated from my undergrad at Mississippi State, and I remember applying to over 40 jobs. Wow. I could not, but I didn't have really any experience. And so I ended up back down this way in Hattiesburg. And so when you mentioned about R3SM, I came on after Katrina. Really, it was a faith walk. It was supposed to be 6 months, and 16 years later, here I stand. So when we talk about faith, so everything in between. But as you know, life is not always easy or the white picket fence. I went through a lot of trauma during that time, was in an abusive relationship. So that is one of the things that I really try to hone in on, to let women and men know that they are not by themselves, that they do not have to be disrespected, and that their voice matters. So I want to give people the opportunity to know that that they are important, because sometimes in life, it can really knock you down. It can make you question who you are, even after you've gotten over certain situations. And you really have to lean in faith and ask God and remember who does God say you are? And His word says you are above and not beneath, a lender and not a borrower. So no matter where you are and who might be listening, know that you're important and your voice matters, and you can get through it.
Well, I remember after we first met and R3M was going through transition, and they were going to look for a new executive director, and I'd become chair of the board, and it was just so obvious that your gifts and graces were a match to that. And in some ways, you probably think that's a blessing and a curse. But as you stepped into that leadership, it was just such a joy to watch you, because you were simultaneously claiming the leadership and claiming your voice and finding your identity and bringing your place. And it was so authentic. You're one of the most patient, thoughtful people that I know, and you're laughing because when you're sitting in your office you don't feel that patient, and when that person is on the phone call you don't feel that patient. But part of what has allowed you to navigate the challenges of a lot of this recovery is your ability to kind of hold your tongue, listen, wait, give things time to process, and then respond. And watching you grow into that, and watching you lead and emerge in this community as one of the people is so deeply networked that you're just a part of the fabric here.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, you saw me when we were in transition. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But I just remember the promise, which was that we were to help people. Some of the people who were often overlooked, cast aside in whatever capacity. During the pandemic, we started a food distribution program that not only serviced people that were inside of the city, but also other rural counties and areas that were underserved. And it was people from all different walks of life. And so I could think about times when I didn't have enough food to eat, or I was trying to feed my son, or other people, helping us out, and what that meant, because food is something that nobody should have to go without.
No.
And so even things of that nature. So I really try to network and find resources and so it might not be through me directly, but if I can help somebody else with a resource that I know is available, I try to pass it along and push it and share it with the community. So it has really been helpful to me because it gives me encouragement to know that there is power in collaboration. And one voice might not be as loud, but when we speak together and come together, we can really make a difference.
And I think that's the thing I admire about you too, is that you understand the power of community. You understand the idea that, I mean, you said this when you came in, wealth is not always money. That the depth of relationships, that the people we know and how we do things together can change the quality of everybody's life.
That is true. I just think about recently, I'm a part of the Hattiesburg Rotary. I give them a plug, service above self. But recently we came together for an event, our annual wine tasting. And it was one of the greatest proceeds, and we were able to give two local nonprofits that were kind of the underdogs or, smaller organizations, but that do a lot of great work, $5,000 a piece.
Wow.
And that was with a lot of sponsorship, donations, word of mouth. But it was a packed house, and that gift, those single gifts will multiply for people that are in need throughout our community. So you just never know how your service and how your connectivity can help somebody else, especially. And so that's why my faith journey has really been important, because it reminds me that you can always help wherever you're needed, and to serve and to try to do it with a good heart and just to be led by God.
And you do have that servant heart. If I were to sit here and count on my hands all the organizations that you've stepped into and brought the kind of quiet, strong leadership that you bring, it just kind of VOAD whenever we were first there, the Interfaith Coalition that deals with disaster response and tries to create organizational communication, NAMI, and your involvement there with mental health, and you're chairing them for what now going into the sixth year. But you've always kind of found your space. The leadership is not just in the high profile things. It's in those gritty places where sometimes finding leadership is hard. Mental health is still a taboo area in our lives here in Mississippi. The collaboration between interfaith communities is still always a challenge because people are always finding more reasons to divide than unite. And you've always been that kind of factor that's had the capacity to keep people at the table and to keep those conversations going.
To keep the conversations going and to try to let people know at the end of the day, we all need each other.
Right.
It might not be your child or your family when it comes to mental health or needing social services, but it might be somebody or it might be your turn. It might not be your turn today, but it might be your turn tomorrow. So, in whatever capacity that you can serve or help, it might not be financial resources, but it might be service and donating. I know we try every year to partner in some kind of way with Christian Services. They do a yeoman's job with the Meals on Wheels, and so even with NAMI or with Rotary, with both of the clubs, we try to assist and partner. So if y'all are out there hearing it, please check them out. They're a wonderful food pantry, as well as Edward Street Food Pantry as well. Both of them really serve a lot of the people in the community that are often overlooked.
Right. The homeless ministry of both of them is just, and both of them, Ann and I were talking on a previous podcast about the impact of mental health, not just physical health, but mental health on those who are underserved, and that, they can't just pull their insurance card out and call. And so having this integrated approach where you're not only just feeding them, but you're caring about their souls and their minds and their relationships.
So we're doing a lot more with outreach. And so I'm very thankful we have two new co-chairs, outreach co-chairs that specifically get out into the community. And I just say, one of the presentations I was trained in is called In Your Own Voice. And that's about living with mental illness. And so I asked them, I said, do I look like I have a mental challenge when I start off? And, and they was like, no, you look like you're fine. I said, well, you really can't tell what's going on in somebody's mind just by how they look.
Exactly.
And so that's how I start off on any of the presentations. I remember presenting to, I think, the Corps of Engineers one time, and it was people from Alaska and all of them and we only had an hour. So they were all across the country during the pandemic, and they didn't want to get off. They were asking so many questions and things of that nature, but we can even do the presentation, at a homeless shelter or a transitional place. So that presentation, it just tells me that all across the board, people are having, challenges when it comes to mental health and need support in that area.
I think we haven't even begun to see the back wave and backlash of COVID and the isolation and how it impacts our social network and our personal ability to interact and navigate. I think a lot of the challenge we face right now in terms of the anger and the political situation is a lot due to this mental effect that COVID had on us.
It is. It's a climate, and just like with everything, it's a boiling point.
Yeah.
And you can only pour in so much and turn the heat up so high until it just it overflows. And sometimes that looks messy. And it can be in so many different areas. From stress with the housing. I've gotten calls maybe even last night as far as people who are homeless needing transition, other people who trying not to get evicted, and the housing disparities, the food complications, and different things of that nature. People on jobs, concerned if their jobs are going to get cut, other nonprofits who are funded by certain sources. That's a lot to all trying to.
It is.
And you're still trying to function on the level and not be overwhelmed and not be consumed. So that's why faith is really important to me, because otherwise it could be me. It could be me. I used to make a joke talking about if y'all ever see me running down the highway with my underwear on, just know just flag me down. just
Finally.
talking about it's just flag me down. But we laugh about it, but that could be a real situation, because it's a lot for people to try to just manage. And so with me, I really try to be strong in my faith and not let it consume me, because it can at times.
Watching you as you have heard God's call and tried to navigate between, am I called to preach? Am I called to social work? Am I called to do this? And what you're finding out, I think, is yes, that all of it is almost inextricable.
Yes, that's a good. We laugh about it, because I remember I was telling you something years ago, and I was like, "Oh," I said, "I don't think I'm ready." You said, "You'll get ready."
Yeah, and you are. You have been, and you're still getting ready, just like all of us. We were talking before we started the podcast, and I was just saying, in this season of my life, I'm learning new things and different things, and that's part of the growth process, and part of it feels like a gift and part of it feels like a curse, but all of it is for our good.
It is. And in different seasons, you need different abilities, different strengths. I think about it like strengthening your spiritual muscles and what that looks like. And it's not, with strength training, it's not always easy.
No.
But you just have to grow through it. That's what
it is. It's just necessary. My son's has a farm, and one of the things, weeding and tending is not pleasant, but things don't grow unless you take care of them
and
water them and prune them and feed them. And you have been so diligent in that. And as we kind of look at winding this down, talk about where you are now. We were talking beforehand. You've been working hard in your equipping and training. So where are you right now?
Where I am right now, I recently graduated from William Carey University with my master's in counseling psychology. So I will be putting in my application to get my provisional license. And so I'm excited about that, going further in that journey, because I'm, doing it already unofficially as far as counseling, and also growing ministerially. I have a wonderful church home now that's a good discipleship, Dominion in Power. So I'm very thankful for them and their love. Leadership is important, but love is really integral when it comes to a church setting. So I'm very thankful for them and to be under their leadership of Apostle Beard and his wife, Pastor Jessica Beard, and what they do and what they stand for. Also, I have an individual women's journal that will be coming out. It's been long in the process. I know I told you about it years ago.
Yeah.
So I wrote it after getting out of my domestic abuse situation. So it's a journal about faith and hope, and just, starting over and what that looks like, as well as I have a online boutique that just relaunched, Mac Boutique and Beauty, which will fall up under Mavis on Main, a lifestyle and fashion space. So I'm loving life, and I feel like I'm in a new season, and so I'm very thankful and very thankful.
Well, you know how much I love you and how much I've just enjoyed watching you as you have navigated all this. And so as we kind of wind this down, let me just kind of give you an open forum. What do you want to say to folks that are listening in their own situation? What is kind of your charge to them?
My charge is to seize the moment, whatever that looks like. For some people, it might just be getting out of bed each day and thinking of something positive and trying to push forward. For other people, it might be getting a business plan in place. For me, recently with my boutique, it took me a month before I posted anything, even though I had inventory. I drug my feet because I was not assured that, am I doing this? Am I doing this? And, and so just that self-doubt that you might have from previous situations, that might be something you need to work through. So I say seize the moment, because tomorrow is not promised, and just to really be thankful for life. At the end of the day, tomorrow is not promised, and just really it's good to just be happy and to be whole and to be well.
Wow, that's so powerful. So powerful. Well, I thank you for taking time to join me, and we're going to circle back later as you continue this journey and have part 2. And when we get ready for you to release your book, we want to be a part of you sharing that with the listening audience. But thank you for everything you do and for just living in the moment like you challenged everybody. So journey on and live into tomorrow. Thank you guys for joining us, and as always, hey, live loved.
Wow. Mavis Craig. Again, incredible people we're having on this program who are making a difference in people's lives.
It's funny, I went to her Facebook page to see exactly what you posted so I know what to put on here. I mean, it's like, I already mentioned she's president of so many organizations, involved very heavily in mental health issues because she herself had been in abusive relationships and had gone through so much health-wise and otherwise. And the wisdom that she's garnered at her, I say, young age has been just kind of stormed into her by life. And the way she's handled it and navigated it has really made her an incredible leader. There's nobody, I don't think, in that community that doesn't know of Mavis and the work she's done. And, she's kind of like you in the sense that she can stretch further than most people in the world and put herself in so many places because she's so good that people want her to be a part of what they're doing.
Well, and that's one of the thoughts that come to my mind is that someone like this who is so passionate and who is so effective and doing so many things My prayer is that listeners will feel a tug and want to, in some way, come alongside these efforts that she's doing,
Right.
and help lift her up. And sometimes that's financial gifts, sometimes that's prayer, sometimes it's hey, I want to be on this board, or I want to be a part of this organization, or what can I do to help? Not just when a tornado hits, what can I do to help lighten your load as she lightens the load of so many others? And that's my prayer.
And her voice in the mental health community is so strong and prevalent. She just has been at work and school, getting her counseling degree, doing things. She really feels a call from the Lord on her life, and I can't wait to see what God's doing next. And on top of that, she's been an incredible mom and just friend. And so it's not just the ministry she does, it's the person she is. So I hope y'all will look her up on Facebook, find out she's...
What's the best way you would think?
Go to her Facebook page, go to Mavis Craig, and
spell
on
that
that
for 'em. So that's CREAGH.
Right.
I know that's how most of you are trying to spell
exactly.
it. Mavis, Mavis, Craig, CREAGH.
Exactly. And look her up on Facebook, friend her, and then just look at the list of things. She's got things she's written. She does workshops. She just has so many ways that she's trying to share the blessings that God has given to her. So I hope y'all will check her out. That's part of why we do this, is to send you in the direction of people who not only are helping, but you need to come alongside of, as Anthony said, and be an encourager and be a supporter. And if you feel called to that, please do.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's easier to join into something that is in action rather than saying, I've got to start something from scratch. And I guarantee you Mavis would be one who could point you in the right direction of how you're feeling called to serve.
From Rotary to
Exactly.
to NAMI, she can find a place for you to be involved. So we were so grateful her to take time and have that conversation with us.
More good stuff's on the way, Steve.
It is on the way. And so please stay tuned. We're going to do a more intentional job of sending out some teasers of when we're going to drop our podcast. And we're inviting you to share this with your friends. We have some exciting guests that'll be coming up that we'll talk about later. But go back and listen to some of the old episodes. Some of you, as you hear this, may know that during August we did a blitz of going back and doing some of the early podcasts we did. And you know what? We liked them when we first did them. We like them the second time.
Absolutely. Because, some of the stuff that I was saying, you weren't listening the first time. So maybe
Exactly.
you'll get it that second.
Maybe I wasn't even listening to myself. I don't know. Sometimes I get distracted.
And we say, did I say that?
That was really good. Where did that come from?
Well, that's more rare.
Yeah, well,
Mostly
what
it's
can I
like,
say?
What was that?
Look, just give me a moment.
but it is fun, and that's the good thing about this format is people can listen and re-listen or share in such an easy way. So we're grateful for you tuning in. Grateful for you tuning in. And brought to you by.
Exactly.
But thank you for joining us and just being a part of this continuing journey as we just try to find new ways to continue this conversation about what it means to be different.
And just let us tell you, whether you listen or not, we're going to do these things because we like it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we're different.
Lord knows that.
Lord knows that.
Well, we thank you guys for listening. And as always, hey, remember, live love.
Live love. You've been listening to The Difference, a presentation of The Hour. The Difference is made in conjunction with and partnership with the Institute for Southern Storytelling at Mississippi College. To find out more about the Institute and ways that we are partnering and mentoring young lives through storytelling, filmmaking, and more, visit us at southernstorytelling.mc.edu. And for more resources from The Hour and from The Difference, check us out at our Hour Stream platform with the streaming content at thehour.org. I'm Anthony Thaxton. Thanks for joining us.